Alright, welcome to today's lesson on Swing, where we're going to be taking a look at how to scale our images. So far in the programs we've created in Swing, we've been able to create our custom components containing images that we have drawn ourselves. But what happens when we want to take those custom components and make them smaller or bigger than the size we originally decided? So for example, when we were working with our homers, right, we had a homer that was going to be set in a size of 180 by 280. So when we compile and run it, we get our homer that looks like this. But maybe I want my homer to only be a smaller amount of that. So if I were to go into my homer and make it size 90 by 130, for example, and try and run this, we end up with a stick figure that is only a portion of the size. Well, the reason that happens is because in our stick figure component that we've created here, all the values we've used for our drawing ovals and rectangles and so on have been hard-coded values. So they're specific numbers. They're not based on the size at all. They have nothing to do with the size. So when we change the size, these values remain the same, so we only see a portion of the actual image. So to fix that, we need to display our image based on the size of the component we're working with. So we need to use the methods getWidth and getHeight. This allows us to scale our image by drawing our image on a grid. So if I were to draw that homer based on a 6 by 9 grid, so I'm going to take that component I originally had and break it up into 6 columns and 9 rows. So now if I want to draw this particular homer, let's say I want to draw a circle, I know that it's going to be 2/6 the way across, 0/9 down for the top left corner, 2/6 wide, and 2/9 tall. So a third and a third, making a circle centered in the middle up here. That code would end up looking something like this. Right? So the width times 2/6, the height times 0/9, the width times 2/6, and the height times 2/9. But that gets a little bit tedious trying to figure out all those dimensions, right? So we need to come up with a method that is a little bit simpler. Well, we can do that by using the Graphics2D class. It's very similar to the Graphics-D class, except it allows you to do some extra little components. So one of which being setting the scale of my drawing. When I do that, I can then use my fill method by only providing the numerators for each of those fractions we saw before, and this would give me the exact same results as that big long line of code we had. This requires the following code. So I have to first instantiate a Graphics2D object by casting the original graphics object as a Graphics2D object. Okay, that's this line of code here. The second thing I'm going to do is scale my image that I'm trying to work with. So in this case, scaling the component itself. So I'm going to get a grid of 6 by 9. And again, you can use whatever grid sizes you want. This is what I happen to use for the particular homer we were working with. And then finally, I'm going to use this set stroke method. What this does is it's going to determine the width of the pen that I'm using, the imaginary pen I'm using to draw my lines. Okay? So I create a basic stroke object, which is requires a float as its value, so it's going to be 1 divided by the width of the component. So therefore, when I draw a line, it's going to be 1 pixel wide. Okay? I could make this number much bigger, which would provide me with a larger or thicker line when I draw all my details. Okay? So if I were to do that, it's going to result in something that looks something like this. Okay? So here I've got my stick figure. Again, I haven't changed anything. The only thing I've changed is in my paint component method, I've now added in the code to allow me to come up with a set stroke. And now when I do all my drawings, I use my Graphics2 component that I created, and all I have to do is fill in the numerators for each one of those values. So if I were to try and compile this, and run it, you'll see I can have an oddly shaped homer here, and I can easily go in and change the dimensions of the object. So we can go back to that 90 by 130 we were trying to work with before, and because they're all based on this scale here, we should find that my homer changes with that scale. That's it. That's all we have for today. We'll see you tomorrow where we can practice what we've learned.